in my opinion, this topic that we'll be discussing right now is very interesting and is very important. And not very interesting for kids, except for you. Special boy. Controversy gets everybody's attention, usually. And one of the descriptions of Lord Ramachandra is this one, Maryada Purushottama. Purusha means person or male. Uttama, topmost. The topmost person who Maryada. Maryada means virtue. He is the perfectly virtuous person. He displayed for the world to understand what does it mean to be a virtuous person. Here's the perfect virtuous person, Lord Ramachandra. He who strictly follows Vedic rules and regulations and never transgresses them. Says like the positive and negative always, and never refrains from or fails. Now there are at least two passages in Ramayana that irritate people on this particular point. One was the way in which Ramachandra killed Vali. And Vali articulates that apparent transgression. He criticizes Ramachandra with an arrow in his chest, saying, "Why did you do this? Why did you do it in this way? I've done nothing to harm you, and look what you've done, and how you're supposed to be a religious person. How is this religious? You hid behind a tree," and so forth. And point by point by point, Ramchandra doesn't get ruffled. He just responds point by point by point by point. And one of the principal points was that although he's in the forest, he's the representative of the royal family, and the royal family is duty-bound to perform their duties according to religious principle. And the religious principle of cohabiting with another man's wife, even his stepbrother, half-brother, is punishable by death. So I'm doing the duty of the rulership of the whole world by following the principles of Dharma and punishing wrongdoers according to principles of Dharma. So it's not any violation. Then he gave other reasons and explanations. So that's a nice one. It's a good one. If you don't know the issue on both sides, it's good to know it, because what he did was not in violation of Dharma. It was upholding principles of Dharma. It wasn't just because his friendship with Sugriva. It was because the Vali was punishable in the way that he was punishable. But the other one is, and it's in quote, Sita's exile. And this one gets lots of questions too. Maybe more than the first one. Because when Sita was sent into exile, she was 5 months pregnant. And how is it that a protector of one's wife sends one's wife to the forest when she's 5 months pregnant. How is this the Maryada Purushottama behavior? How to justify it? Why did he do the way that he did it? And we'll spend some time on that question. Now, one thing that's nice to know, according to Shikshastaka, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the position of a devotee of the Lord. This is now, in this case, it's Sita in relation to Ramachandra. In Shikshastaka, it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in relation to Krishna. Let's say the verse together. We all know the verse. Aslishyava pararatam panashtumam adarshanam marmaharam karotuva yatatava vadidhatu lampato matprananatas sa eva naparaha. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord unconditionally. So Sita had no ill feeling. Here, actually, it was to the contrary. And there's yet another principle. And this other principle is found in Hanuman's prayers. I'm looking at our young scholar here. Where is Hanuman right now? Kim Purusha Varsha. You've heard of that place? Kim Purusha Varsha? So Varsha means tract of land, and Kim Purusha Varsha is one of the 9 tracts of land that make up the central island of Bhumandala called Jambudweep, and that's where Hanuman is right now, singing and hearing and glorifying the name, fame, qualities, pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his associates, headed by, because Hanuman isn't the ruler, he is the assistant to a ruler. So the ruler there is Arishtasena. This is Canto 5, Chapter 19. And he offers, there's 8 verses, he offers prayers glorifying Ramachandra. This is one of them, text 6. Since Lord Ramachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, he is not attached to anything in this material world. He is the most beloved super soul of all self-realized souls, and he is their very intimate friend. He is full of all opulences, therefore he could not possibly have suffered because of separation from his wife. When she was kidnapped, he was feeling apparent suffering. Nor could he have given up his wife. And Lakshmana, his younger brother. To give up either would have been absolutely impossible. So it's double. He didn't and he couldn't. But in the Leela, all those things happened. So how to explain what he's saying? Is he wrong? Or is he right? And if he's right, he's right. How do I understand that he's right? Well, first of all, that he didn't suffer. It's described in Nectar of Devotion, which is a summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, on the topic of rasa, which is a profound topic, very detailed explanation by Rupa Goswami, which he received from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The science of bhakti rasa, etc., etc. So, according to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar Devotion, there are five primary rasas and 7 secondary rasas, making 12. And of the secondary rasas, one of those rasas is Karuna rasa, that has a foundation called Staibhava of Shoka. Shoka means Harsha Shoka, sad, sorrow. It's a rasa, or it's a Staibhava. It's an ecstasy that may, to our inspection, our yardsticks, looks like bad. But it's a bhava in relation to the object, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And according to Rupa Goswami, Lord Ramachandra is the presiding deity of that Staibhava, Shoka, and its corresponding rasa. There's a little science of what's the relationship between the Staibhava and rasa. Want a little nectar devotion class? Quickly. Staibhava is compared, to understand it, is compared to an axle that without movement of the axle, it's just standing still. It's Staibhava, a steady ecstasy. But when there's stimulations of that Staibhava, those are called udipans, stimulations of ecstatic love, then the axle starts to turn. And when the axle starts to turn, it then no longer is just Staibhava. Still Staibhava is there, but it becomes rasa, stimulated by something. So this is just the science of rasa. There's stimulations of ecstatic love that produce rasa. So the rasa that Lord Ramachandra is the presiding deity of is karuna. Do you know the meaning of karuna? Karuna? Merciful. Yes. Very good. Smart boy. Karuna means mercy. Now, what's the relationship between shoka and karuna? It sounds like opposites. How can shoka, the Staibhava of shoka, produce mercy or compassion? Doesn't seem like a good fit. When there's misfortune, it gives rise to an emotion. Shoka, misfortune. When I first read Ramayana, a word that kept repeating itself and repeating itself and repeating it, the English version was sorrow. And sorrow and sorrow. Maybe you remember, I don't know if I did this, the Mangala Charana verse of the entire Ramayana was the verse that was uttered by Valmiki when he saw the hunter shoot the krancha bird. Arising from sorrow, he spoke very harsh condemnation, moved by the sorrow that he was feeling. The verse, the essence of the verse is, "Oh, hunter, you're shooting an arrow at the male krancha bird when he and she were at the peak of their passion was such a cruel act. May you never experience joy and freedom from misery, for years and years and years. Now, he's not just like a sadhaka. He's Valmiki Muni. He's a perfected personality. Na sochati, na kangsati, samak sarveshu bhuteshu. He's on that platform. But something else came out. Shoka. Moved by shoka. Lamentation, sorrow, very, very, very sad, to the point of condemning and cursing the hunter. And then he, Valmiki, was very surprised at what he just felt and what he said after that feeling. He was lamenting and shocked at his own words. Then he was musing over, where did this come from? This is according to Bhardraj Muni, was watching these emotions wave over Valmiki. And then there was an inner radiance of joy that he was feeling from one moment to the, so he was undergoing the stimulation of ecstatic love because of his relationship with, ultimately, with the personality of Godhead. Shortly thereafter, Lord Brahma appeared after he had gone back to his ashram, and Brahma visited him in person and said, I know that you were very surprised that you spoke these words, but I want you to know that it was I who inspired Saraswati to speak through your mouth these words. And it meant not just the words, but the emotion. Because this emotion is the basis of, you just heard, short while ago, you heard 74 verses spoken by Narada about who is the best hero. I want you to write, as Narada also indicated, so Brahma is Narada's guru. I want you to write an entire composition describing the life of Lord Ramachandra. It's very nice. It's like, this is all the beginning of Valmiki Ramayana, the first section, Skanda. And I want you to know that I will reveal to you the entire 1 billion verses of Mula Ramayana. And I want you to know that I will make everything unknown to everyone, including you, known by you. You'll understand the mood and the feelings and the thoughts of all the personalities in Ramayana. And please put that in a written form. He got blessings from what started off being Shoka, because Ramachandra is the presiding deity. And it led to Karuna, those persons feeling compassion for his misfortune, Ramachandra's misfortune, Sita's misfortune, etc., etc. So that's the makeup of the thread that runs through the entire Ramayana. The Lord of that rasa is Ramachandra, and it's the story of his life. There's details, but there's also meanings, not so necessarily apparent, but through the assistance of very qualified Vaishnavas, one can excavate those different moods and emotions and feel them. Now, it may look like something material, at least initially, until one becomes purified, and then one understands a little bit more about what it really is. It's not something material. So now we're going to go through 8 different explanations of why Ramachandra was Maryada Purushottama throughout the whole arrangement of Sita's exile when she was 5 months pregnant to go to the ashram of Valmiki. There are different places where this scene is described. One of them, of course, is in the Ramayana itself. Here's another one from Padma Purana. The arrangement, according to Padma Purana, a king would sometimes send spies to go incognito here and there in the kingdom to find out what people are saying about the king. Are they happy? Are they unhappy? What's the real story? Because some people won't say, so he sends spies to find out what they're saying. And the spies would come back and report what they heard, and for the most part it was glorification, glorification, glorification. And one of the spies didn't want to report. He tried to cover up, but Ram could understand he was covering up. And he then revealed, I heard one washerman, a simple laborer, who was complaining and criticizing Ramachandra, saying, I am not King Ram, who has protected Sita, who has stayed at another's house. So according to Vedic culture, a woman, married or unmarried, doesn't go stay at somebody's house. If somebody stays at somebody else's house, a man's house, this is contrary to religious principle. So the washerman was saying to his wife, who came back the next morning, and the man was really heavy with his wife, saying, I'm not like that Ramachandra, the doting Ramachandra, who protects Sita. Even she stayed at another's house, not just for one night. She was kidnapped, but, still, that was his position. So one of the documents that, I don't know if you've already received it, the very nice, very detailed, several-page document that Shyamasundar Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple, wrote years ago, and he went to the trouble of having it copyrighted because he was so diligent, about the previous birth of the washerman Krodana. Did you receive that document? Yes, no. Okay. I sent it again. Now, there's a printed copy on the table, so somebody got it. But I sent it again to Premadhatri, and she can circulate it however you circulate things. I'm just going to summarize it, but you can then, it's very detailed. If anyone knows Shyamsundar, he's a very fussy, particular, he's articulate, he's very intelligent, he's very careful with his words, and if it's not with this T or that I, he'll let you know, because very precise, which is nice. It's nice, but it's one of his qualities. So it's a document that draws from Padma Purana primarily who was Krodana, the washerman, in his previous life. And according to this document, or according to Padma Purana, in his previous life, the washerman was a male parrot. And according to this explanation, one day when Sita was very young, she was with her friends. They were in a garden area, and she heard these two male and female parrots singing. And they were singing the pastimes of Ramachandra. And the part that interested her the most was the parrots were describing Sita getting married. Now, she's just a young girl. She hasn't been married yet, but she's hearing these parrots sing about her marriage. And so she became very curious. And, tell me more, tell me more. Where did you hear this? Previously, we were parrots in the ashram of Valmiki, and we heard the singing and narrating of the pastimes of Ramachandra. And so we're only repeating what we heard. She said, tell me more, tell me more. She said, we can't tell you more. We're parrots. We can't tell you more than what we heard. So she didn't settle for that. She wanted to know more. So she took the female parrot and put the female parrot in a cage and said to both of them, I'm not letting her out until I hear more. And the female parrot was going berserk. I don't want to be separated from my husband. And she said, very well, you tell me more. But we can't tell you more because we only can tell you what we heard. We're parrots. And she was adamant. And feeling the pain of separation, sorrow of separation from her male parrot husband, she died in the birdcage. And when the male bird saw that his mate had died because Sita put the female bird in a cage, he went berserk and said, I can't maintain my life without my wife. You've destroyed her life, and I'm going to end my life. But I curse you that you will have to undergo separation when you are pregnant, just like my wife. And he flew into the river and drowned. So that was Krodana in his previous life, according to this nice description. And so Krodana came back and is the one who spoke in such a way that caused the separation of Sita when she was pregnant, due to the curse of a Dvija. You know the meaning of Dvija? Yes. Ja indicates birth. Dvija means twice born. A Brahmana is called a twice born, or Dvija. Correct? Dvija. Now, birds are also Dvijas, because first is an egg, and then the second is when the egg hatches. So birds are also called Dvijas. So the curse of a Dvija came to be true because the words of a Dvija are upheld by the Supreme Lord. That's the explanation given in this document that you'll receive a copy of soon enough. The very same description is found in Garga Samhita. And there's several verses, starting with verse 5, where, according to Garga Samhita, the washerman says, I will not maintain you a sinner that returns at dawn from another's house. Ramachandra, who is greedy to enjoy with his wife, may continue to maintain his Sita, but I am not like him. I'm an upholder of Dharma, and he's not. Lord Ramachandra had no wish to punish him, this Krodana, the washerman, and in due course this person became a washerman in Mathura at the end of Dwapara Yuga. Who was the washerman in Mathura? He's the washerman of Kamsa. You know the story? You know the story. When Krishna, with the cowherd boys, was entering Mathura, he saw the washerman carrying a big bundle. He asked the washerman, the cowherd boys, could you give them some clothes from that bundle? And the washerman said something quite insulting. Do you know whose clothes these are? These belong to the king. If the king knew that you were asking, you'd have your head. You're lucky that you're alive, and blah, 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 blah. So what did Krishna do? He took the tips of his fingers, and with the tips of his fingers, it wasn't a judo chop or something, he just separated the head from the rest of the washerman's body. And then he began distributing the clothes to the cowherd boys so they could be dressed properly for going into the big city instead of being out in the country. To stop his blasphemy, however, Lord Krishna killed him. Then the Lord, who is an ocean of mercy, gave him liberation. This is a BBT painting. Looks like a pushkar painting. So the clothing, there's over the right side, that's the washerman without his head. And this is the cowherd boys. It wasn't just for Krishna, it was for the cowherd boys. And there's several such paintings. Here's the cowherd boys getting dressed. Here's Krishna letting the washerman have it. That's the first explanation, the curse of the washerman. Or the washerman's previous birth, where as a Dvija, he had cursed that there would be this separation. There's 8 explanations. Here's a second explanation. The name of the Sri Vaishnava Acharya is named Sri Jamatri Muni. I'm familiar with Sri Jamatri Muni, who was also known as Navama Mahamuni, something like that. We'll see the name again. He's quoted a number of times by Jiva Goswami in Paramatma Sundarbha, because he makes certain points about the relationship between the Supreme Soul and the Jiva, which Jiva Goswami liked so much, he repeated it again, referred to him again and again. So he's an Acharya who Jiva Goswami appreciated very much. So one of his writings is Mumukshu Padi. And this Mumukshu Padi, he gives a second reason. And it has to do with Sita's mood in relation to Ramachandra. Paratantriyam is the nice word. Sita's mood of acting as an instrument, completely dependent upon Rama's discretion, fully under the influence and under the control of the Lord. And the reference to this is Valmiki Ramayana, where Ramachandra, Uttarakhanda, Ramachandra asked Sita to state her desire during her pregnancy. Because of her intimacy with Ramachandra and being this paratantriyam, she wanted what he wanted. Understanding the heart of Ram, Sita told him that she would like to live in the forest during her pregnancy period. That's Jamatri Muni's words. Here's her words from Uttarakhanda. I would like to live under the holy feet and around those sages who live near the Ganges. I would like to live and eat like them. And the reason, according to Jamatri Muni, is so that the city residents would not talk badly about Ram. Now this is in relation to the washerman's comment, knowing that he had made such a comment, she wanted Ram to not be put in that predicament because of her. And so she desired to go elsewhere. It was her desire. That's right from Valmiki Ramayana. 2 reasons. 6 more to go. The Sri Vaishnava Acharyas make a big deal about the words that Sita spoke to Lakshman. You all know the story. Maricha, golden deer, frisking in front of the ashram of Ram and Lakshman and Sita. She became attracted to the deer. She asked Ram to fetch the deer. Lakshman said, it's a trick. Who's ever seen a deer like that? Golden, and he's changing colors like a rainbow, and it's a trick. Don't go for it. It's a trick. And Sita just ignored him. And basically, I want the deer. And then, because it's a Leela, not that Ramchandra didn't know, but Ramchandra said, even if it's a Rakshasa trick, then I can destroy him, no problem. If I can bring him back, no problem. So Lakshman, you stay here and protect Sita, which is one of the things that he did a number of prior occasions. In Janistan, take Sita to a cave and protect while I deal with these Rakshasas, etc. So, as was the plan, when Ram slayed Maricha, the voice went out, sounding just like Ramachandra's voice. Lakshman, Sita, help, as if he needs help. Sita heard, you know what happened? Go, and he said, I'm not going. Ram said, stay. Oh, you're not going? I know what that means. And you got to sit where you can see that screen up here. He's friendly. He's nice young boy. So she started vilifying him, saying really nasty things. That's another document that you'll receive. You cut and paste from Valmiki Ramayana the harsh words that Sita spoke. She offended. This goes back to one of the messages, the first class on the topic of the offense of Dvidvita. This is the defense of Sita. It doesn't matter who you are. The goddess of fortune can't defend Lakshman. Or there's a consequence. And she made a big offense. So the acharyas in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya particularly speak about the consequence of Sita's making offense to Lakshman. She had to suffer. She, by Leela, had to show by example. No, she can't be touched by anything. But within the Leela, she was not only touched by something, but she was kidnapped. She had to go through a big ordeal. One of the causes was her offense to Lakshman. Here's Rupa Goswami in the third wave of the Eastern division, where Bhava Bhakti is the topic. And he writes, of course this is just the Sanskrit, the English, by two types of grave offenses, namely, the offense to the dearest devotee or to Krishna himself, Krishna Preshta Aparad, even real bhava is destroyed. So there's some detail that says, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur made commentary. So there's the most grave, there's the intermediate, and there's the lighter. But it doesn't mean lighter means it's okay. It's different than sin. Aparad is very serious business. And the consequence of aparad is very serious stuff. So that is the third reason why Sita had to undergo what she underwent. Not only being kidnapped, but this additional difficulty. 3 down, 5 to go. Did you know, now you'll know, Vishnu killed the wife of Bhrigu. And the way that it's described in Valmiki Ramayana Uttarakhanda, there's a situation where the demons were having battle with the demigods. The demigods were being victorious. The demons fled the battlefield. They took shelter of the ashram of Bhrigu, where his wife was in the ashram. Bhrigu was not there at the moment. Previously, she assured them of her protection. So they took shelter of her when they were running away from the demigods. And when the demigods approached to attack the demons, Bhrigu's wife was ready to kill the demigods to protect the asuras. So when she's very powerful, Vishnu approached, Indra approached Vishnu, help. He helped. He took a Sudarshan chakra and chopped off her head. And Bhrigu returned and saw his wife headless, and he understood, being a clairvoyant Brahmana, what had happened. So then he made this curse, a Brahmana curse, upon Vishnu. It's a Leela. Just as I became separated from my wife, Uttarakhanda Ramayana, Vishnu will be born upon the earth as a human being and suffer for some period of time the pangs of separation from his wife. Now that could be Ravana kidnapping Sita, and it can also be being separated when she was pregnant. Now that's Ramayana Uttarakhanda, Valmiki's Ramayana. The same event is described in two other Puranas, Padma Purana and Matsya Purana. Here's the description. It's quite similar, and then the consequence is different. Conflict, demons, demigods. They took shelter of Shukracharya's mother, because Shukracharya's father was Bhrigu. They took shelter of Bhrigu's wife, or Shukracharya's mother, because they were instructed, because Shukracharya is the priest of the demons, right? Yes? Yes. I'm just making sure we're tuned in. I know that you know, but just I want everyone to be attentive. So, the demigods approached to attack the demons. Shukra's mother was ready to kill the demigods. Indra approached Vishnu. Vishnu cut off her head with his chakra. Very similar. Slightly different detail, but essentially the same. Bhrigu came back. Since you, slightly different, knowing Dharma, have killed a lady who should not have been killed, therefore you will be born among human beings 7 times. They're Leela avatars in human-like form. This is from these two sources. It's a detail. So our reference is primarily the Ramayana. That's 4 down and 4 to go. These are, for those that came in a little late, these are explanations of why Ramachandra can be said to be Maryada Purushottama, even though he sent his wife away unprotected from him, by him, to the ashram of Valmiki to bear the children in the forest at Valmiki's ashram. This one is really easy. There is his interest and there's the citizen's interest, and he placed his citizen's interest first. If someone in this citizenship is going to feel uncomfortable, I'll sacrifice my comfort for the well-being of my citizens. That's an ideal king. Clear? 3 more. This is now from our Sri Vaishnavacharyas that explain the reason that Ramchandra sent his wife to the forest, to the ashram of Valmiki, was he would bear the blame, not her. He did something that wasn't right, and so he would bear the blame rather than her bearing the blame. Clear? That's their explanation. Here's similar but slightly different. Instead of considering the idea that Sita Devi was unfit for Ayodhya, Sri Ram deemed that Ayodhya was unfit for such a chaste lady as Sita Devi. Therefore, in order to care for her, he sent her to Valmiki's ashram, where she would be lovingly cared for, and then the sons that were born, they would also not have to bear the stigma of having their mother called bad names, to protect her from uncultured citizens, and his sons from uncultured citizens, to spare them that criticism Out of his love for them, he sent them. He sent her. One more explanation, which is very interesting. Madhvacharya. One of the epic writings of Madhvacharya was a very detailed, comprehensive commentary on the whole of Mahabharata. Mahabharata is big literature. And parts of Mahabharata, we discussed this the other day, have pastimes of Ramachandra, because Ramayana, the advent of Ram happened in a previous yuga to when Mahabharata is taking place. So there are sections where there's narrations of Ramayana in Mahabharata, or Ramachandra's pastimes within Mahabharata. So referring to that section, a demon received a benediction. For as long as Lakshmi and Narayan are united, I cannot die. Thinking they're never separated, so I'll not die. Tricky immortality. However, Ram's separated from Sita so that Indra could kill the demon. The plan of Ram was after that he would call her back. That's Madhvacharya's 8th explanation. Now there are 3 separations. 1, Sita's being kidnapped. 2, her being sent to the ashram of Valmiki. And the 3rd separation was Sita entered into the earth. Right? Yeah. So here we are. Here's Geometry Muni making a comment on this pastime. His other name is Manavala Mamuni. Manavala Mamuni, or Geometry Muni, an Acharya in the Sri Vaishnava line. Very celebrated person. He writes that she was exhibiting a certain quality. Ananyaha Tvam. She's exclusively belonging to Ramachandra. She has allegiance to no one else, to him only. As he's Maryada Purushottama, he is a fastidious follower of virtue and Dharma, and he never deviates from it. She's fastidiously dedicated to the happiness and pleasure of Lord Ramachandra and never deviates from it. This is his commentary. So something we're going to hear in another class, I can't remember which sequence. One of the 4 brothers, you want to say the names of the 4 brothers? Ram, Lakshman, Shatrughna. So we don't hear so much about Shatrughna, but we're going to hear something about Shatrughna during this visit. He took the service of killing Lavanasura. In the course of that narration, which we'll hear some, because where Ayodhya is, to get to where Lavanasura was, it's in a westerly direction from Ayodhya. He passed through the ashram of Valmiki. He was there the evening that Sita gave birth. He watched the whole ceremony, that the rituals, etc., that Valmiki performed. For 12 years, he had left the ashram and was ruling in Madhurapuri, now Mathura, which was the capital for Lavanasura. And after 12 years, he wanted to return to Ayodhya. And when he came back, he saw the 2 sons. They're now 12 years old. And Valmiki, meanwhile, had done everything. He trained them in scripture. He trained them in proper pronunciation of Sanskrit. He told them so many stories from the Puranas. He educated them inside and outside and thoroughly. And He gave them instruction in military skills because they're princes, they're going to become kings, they have to know these things. So he trained them in all these procedures. And one of the things he also trained them in was music. And the music that they performed was the singing of Ramayana. And when Shatrughna came back and saw these two boys singing so eloquently and elegantly and charmingly, he requested Valmiki, can you bring the boys with me back to Ayodhya? And they can sing Ramayana for the pleasure of Lord Ramachandra. Valmiki liked the idea. So it's not only those three, Valmiki and the two boys, but Sita went also. Here's a nice painting. There's the two boys down in the lower section of the painting. And there's Ramachandra listening. And there's Valmiki and other sages assembled hearing the Ramayana concert. Sita's in the assembly also. And she has very conflicted emotions because her sons, or Ramachandra's sons, are now reunited with their father after 12 years. And the chemistry is fantastic. The sons like their father, the father likes their sons, and she's like, the fifth wheel. And so she's feeling, if I stay, then shame and blame are going to go to my husband. I don't want that. And if my sons have to hear the shame and blame to my husband, that's not going to be good for them either. So she made this big sacrifice. She spoke loud enough so that everyone could hear. Here's the common translation. If I have never even thought about anyone other than Ram, may the goddess Earth grant me shelter. As I worship only Ram in mind, speech, and action, so may the earth give me space. If I have truthfully said that I know only Ram as my Lord, let the earth receive me now. So where did Sita come from? She came from the earth. You're squinting. Sita came out of the earth. When Janaka was plowing, there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a really nice section in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had two wives. The first of his two wives was Shri. The second of his two wives was Bhu, Shakti. Internal potencies of the Supreme Lord, Shri and Bhu. Anyone lost? You're all okay. Think for a moment. We're not accustomed to that nomenclature, but Sri Vaishnavas are. So when they have their deity of Narayana or whatever the form of the Lord is, often he's a larger deity, and then there's small festival deities or utsav deities. And along with the deity that's worshipped for festivals, there's Shri and Bhu on either side. Correct? Yes. So Shri, that's the goddess of fortune. Shri. And the first of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's wives was Lakshmi Priya, who was Shri Shakti. In the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Nimai Pandit was gone for quite some time, some duties for him, she died of separation. And that news came was very sad for Mother Sachi. She very quickly made a request of Nimai, please accept a second wife. To satisfy his mother, he accepted the second wife. According to Chaitanya Charitamrita, that's Bhu Shakti. Her name was Vishnu Priya. Bhu-Shakti, and Vishnu Priya are one and the same. Sita, similarly, is Bhu-Shakti. Not Mother Earth, because the Mother Earth is an expansion or a reflection of the original She and Bhu-Shakti of the spiritual world. Should I say it again? Say it the other way. In the spiritual world, Lord Narayana is accompanied by his internal potencies or spiritual potencies. There's a third one, Shribu and Nila, or Leela Shakti. That's right. I'm speaking from Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of the early verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita. According to Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Nila Shakti manifests the abode of the Lord, the place where he performs his activities. Or Navadvip is a manifestation of Nila Shakti. And then the two wives are Shri and Bhu. And the Bhu Shakti is the same. The spiritual Bhu Shakti is Sita. And there's an expansion of Sita, earth, or Bhumi. The spiritual potency and the reflection of the spiritual potency. So she arose from the earth, and she's now about to return into earth. This is a painting, a picture of a painting that's hung in the Delhi temple, where, as she requested, Bhu Devi, or Bhumi Devi, appeared on a throne. The earth opened up, and from the earth came this throne, and Sita sat right next to Bhu Devi. There we see in the background, there's Lakshman, there's Ram looking, seeing what's going on. There's Hanuman with his club over his shoulder, etc., etc., etc. Nice painting. Here's another nice painting. So right there in the middle in front of everybody, the earth opened, and Sita was given a place as she requested, and she started to disappear back in that hole in the earth with Bhumi Devi. There's Ramachandra looking very unhappy. And according to the text, Ram looked down at the earth, becoming angry. He said, "O goddess, you should return Sita to me, or you will feel my wrath. Sita was formerly brought out from your womb. Thus, you are my mother-in-law. Therefore, be kind to me and return Sita, or else grant space to me also. I will stay with Sita wherever she has gone, wherever it may be, heaven or in the nether regions. O earth goddess, hear my words, or else I shall destroy you with all your mountains and forests." Ram's eyes blazed in anger, and he stood up, reaching for the bow by his side. Uh-oh. Shoka. Beginning to end. Good news. Brahma appeared above the sacrifice and said, "O Ram, Lord of all the worlds, do not be grieved. Remember your identity as Vishnu." As if he had to, he lapsed into omniscience or something. It's rasa, the secondary rasa of sorrow. By your own arrangement has this separation from Sita been ordained. The pure and noble daughter of Janaka has gone to celestial realms, where you will see her again without doubt. So he was pacified, and Sita disappeared into the earth. And one more document says essentially the same thing. This is a nice painting of Pillai Lokacharya, another member of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, along with Govindaraj Pillai Lokacharya is a celebrated commentator on Ramayana. And one of his writings, as you see here, is Tattva-traya. So there's 3 tattvas that he gives the principle of and then expands on. Mumukshu Padi is one section of his book. Recitations about desiring liberation. So, Sita's separation from Ram, which is our topic. There is the para dukkam, or a sadness that's transcendental. Para tantriyam, we heard that term just before. And anarnyarhatvam, we also heard that term. These are same terms that Geometry Muni uses, and he's, as far as I am aware, Geometry Muni came chronologically or historically after Vedanta Deshika and Pillai Lokacharya as well. So these are standard understandings of the separation of Sita from Ram. It's a rasa. She's experiencing an ecstasy, although it doesn't look like it. Looks very sad. Sorrow and sorrow and sorrow. Begins with and ends with and in the middle. So it takes a transcendental eye, guided by our acharyas' explanations of rasa, to understand the transcendental ecstasy of these misfortunes. But there we have it. Maryada Purushottama, Lord Ramachandra. Any discussion? Yes. Interesting technology. It's so small.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for such insightful class. It's difficult to, I've read Ramayana by Valmiki, Sage Valmiki, and I loved it. But it is difficult to understand the course given by the Dvijas, because the offense committed by Sita Devi was actually by Chaya Sita or Maya Sita, not Sita, full Sita per se. And knowing the character of Mother Sita, so kind, and then the Dharma that she always emphasized. Yeah, so it's like, how will she cause pain to other living entities? So that's there. And also when Lord Ramachandra...
Can we do one at a time?
Uh-huh.
I'll get forgetful.
Okay.
Let's put.
Okay. So let's do
put
that,
number
that
2
part
in the parking lot, and we'll go back. We'll just start with 1.
So that's the first part.
Yeah. I'm pausing because I want to frame the response properly. It's certainly something worth pondering, and to get a proper and comprehensive and correct understanding, it's imperative to get a transcendental eye of our acharyas, particularly Rupa Goswami, and those that have commented on Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu. So I'll send to somebody. It's a document that has what's in Rupa Goswami's writings. To some degree is summarized in Nectar of Devotion, but it's certainly there in our Acharya's commentaries that says it's a misunderstanding to think of the sadness when in fact it's an ecstasy. And And the explanation of given, why is this an ecstasy? It's kind of like how Shoka and Karuna go together. It's a kindness. It's a special kindness. Now, from your perspective, and many, not just you, many persons' perspective, how's this kindness? Looks cruel, and etc. But it's an ecstasy. It's a transcendental ecstasy. So, as explained by our choice, so I just been through, because of leading up to Ram Navami, I've been giving these classes, and this is a standard question, so there's a standard answer by Rupa Goswami of why it's not like that. It's just a misunderstanding, or it's an improper understanding of what's going on. It's not improper. It's an ecstasy. There's a special privilege of Sita because of her love for Ramachandra and Ramachandra's love for Sita. They're inseparable. As Hanuman says in that simple verse from chapter 19 of Canto 5, it's not possible. Can the sun and the sunshine be separated? No such thing. There's no shine without sun. There's no sun without shine. They're inseparable. So here's a Leela that looks like separation. And it looks like it's separation that's cruel and hurtful for him and for her. So it's like it's quite unreasonable. It grates against our sensibilities. In one sense, that's good that it grates against your sensibility. That challenges your sensibilities. And how do I recalibrate my sensibilities? How do I look at this through a lens that a transcendentalist looks at it through the agency of our acharyas? So it's not like we're going to dismiss our acharyas, but we're not going to necessarily buy into that lens, because it still looks and feels like hurtful. That's our challenge. It's our stuff. It's not the Lord and Sita. So what to do? Associate with sadhus that understand these things, and with our faith in the sadhus, that they can help us understand these things. And so it's letting go of a material conception and accepting the transcendental conception. Then to that degree, this little light can go on and say, wow, that was pretty ecstatic. A different kind of ecstasy, a loving ecstasy, where the love was heightened by the Leela. Because after all, the sun and the sunshine can't be separated. Now, swallow that one. It's like, it's not going, I'm sorry, Mara, it's just not going down. The pill is too big.
Yes.
No matter how much water I'm swallowing, the pill is too big, and I'll have to think about it, kind of response. But it has everything to do with our conception of who we are and who the Lord is, and what happiness is, and what love is. So this nice example of Pillai Lokacharya says it. So these are Sita's moods. It's not created by something material or broken by something material. It's her mood. Same as that last verse of Shikshastika. You can do with me whatever you like. Now, second question.
So probably the closure could be her dharma when Lord Ramachandra asked her what she wants to do. So she wanted to do her dharma also, as a wife, because not only as a wife but as a queen, because the king has a reputation, and she was helping him in both ends, as
love.
a husband. And so when she decides to go to the ashram, being pregnant, she did her dharma patni. She did her dharma, and Srila Prabhupada always emphasized, right? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So I'm thinking at that place, she's always thinking of Lord Ramachandra. He's always thinking of Lord Ramachandra and giving.
Don't overanalyze. Love, it doesn't have yardsticks like that.
it's just so. I mean,
Don't
she's a
overanalyze.
great personality.
She's the Shakti and he's Shaktiman.
Yes.
Next. Okay, that's it.
Dharma Pranam Maharaj. Thank you for the class.
I picked a controversial one, so I'm expecting there's going to be not full buy-in.
The bow, today's session's bow is really sad, and it is really hard to shake that off. So if my question is really off the topic, please excuse me for that. My question is, whenever something happens, for example, the Sita Devi's exile, there is a story of the parrots and why parrots and so on. For anything and everything that happens in the life, there are different
Cause and
incidents.
effect.
Yeah, there are cause and effects for that. Sometimes it's hard to sort of even comprehend. We talk about free will and decisions you take and make. It at times though, it is really hard to comprehend how this is free will when everything is actually just run as designed.
No, it's
and
not.
directed.
No. That I'm interrupting. Excuse me, but it's not that because there's consequences for my choices, now everything is scripted and I just go along for the ride because it's already scripted. It's not like that. Even as we move along, there's choices. And then there's the transcendental choice. I mean, we're living, there's stuff back there that got us to where we are. And it could be good stuff. It could be transcendental stuff. But as we move along, we're making choices, moment to moment. Free will is with the living entity. It's not scripted.
What if the choices are limited?
What?
What if the choices are very limited and given to
Okay.
you as,
So there's something back there that determined the choices are very limited. And when the choices are very limited, what does it do? Well, it can make one feel lonely or trapped by circumstance, or it can be liberating. I have real shelter. One of my favorite examples in response to what you just said, what if our choices are very limited? Have you heard the name Viktor Frankl?
no.
Let me inform you who Viktor Frankl is. He was I like his writing. He was a Jew in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II, and he survived. And on the other end, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. His circumstance was so confined, he didn't have choices. He didn't have choices. There's details won't go into because of time. It was hell. Purposefully tormenting, torturing, intimidating, driving people nuts. He survived despite the fact he didn't have choices because he made an inner choice. And he writes in the book, what man needs is not release from tensions at all cost. What man needs rather is a purpose in life waiting for them to be fulfilled. And that was his place of shelter. His profession was a psychiatrist. So he had this vision, but I'm on the other side of this horrific situation, which I can't do anything about right now. I want to be able to help people who are also confined by circumstances and feel trapped. And such negative emotions, they go nuts or commit suicide or whatever. Traumatized by circumstance that you can't do anything about because there is something one can do. That's, in his words, a purpose of life awaiting for you to be fulfilled. In our case, it's making our connection with Krishna that isn't created or it can't be checked by any material circumstance. And when that becomes one's purpose, waiting to be fulfilled, worthy of you, that's where you take shelter. And the circumstance may make it such that that's the only place I can go. There's nice examples in the scripture. Here's one. Sanatana Goswami and his wet itches. Lord Chaitanya checkmated him. He couldn't do this, he couldn't do that, he couldn't do the other thing, he couldn't leave, he couldn't stay, he couldn't. And then Lord Chaitanya took the disease away. Miracle cure. The purpose was absolute, complete dependence upon the Supreme Person, the object of love. The circumstance that was confining was created by the object of love to strengthen and purify and solidify that exclusive shelter taking. And take Prabhupada's life. What he endured to achieve what he achieved was superhuman. Superhuman. I mean, I just listened to, there's a Prabhupada disciple named Daivi Shakti, who was present from the very, 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 very beginning of ISKCON Vrindavan. She just gave a very nice history of ISKCON Vrindavan, and what Prabhupada went through was horrific. But he's a hero. And one of her comments in this presentation is, going through those deprived states made all of us very resilient. I sent that link to Kaladri. You know who Kaladri is?
No.
You have an idea? A Prabhupada disciple that served in New Vrindavan for years and years. But before he served in New Vrindavan for years and years, I asked him, I sent the link, Kaladri, were you there? And he started to cry. He said, not only was there, but I became the personal assistant of Srila Prabhupada for 3 weeks because his personal assistant, Shrutakirti, had malaria. So I took rest right next to Prabhupada. In the only place there was a structure, because in the middle of the night when Prabhupada needed anything, he'd call my name, and I was supposed to do that something, whatever it was. They started crying, talking about it, because after 3 weeks, he also got malaria, and Shrutakirti was now well, so he took over that service. But it was just austere to the max. Austere to the max. Prabhupada's health was a wreck. And he stayed there anyways. Why? He was confined by circumstance. But he had a vision, a mission awaiting for him to be fulfilled. And many, many persons who just getting a fragrance of that mission were willing to sacrifice left and right and sideways. And because of that sacrifice, for his sacrifice, miracles. And it's not a one-time deal. It's what Prabhupada gave us, was that sense of complete dedication and sacrifice to the will of the personality of Godhead. It wasn't written in Scripture. It wasn't scripted somewhere that says it's got to be like this, and so it was like this because it's got to be like this because it's scripted. It's a mission that no one else had done and could do without that very single empowered focus. And that empowerment empowered others. And I'm still feeling Kaladri's crying. How much he misses that mood of being next to Prabhupada for 3 weeks when his body was a shot. He couldn't move. He had to be helped to stand up to go to the toilet. A great hero out in the front lines, leading the charge. So, confined by circumstance, but it can be very confining. It can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide. Confined by circumstances, there's nothing I can do, and on and on and on. And then it can be an impetus for something very wonderful.
Thank you, Maharaj. Your words are really calming my mind and heart. I'll watch the recording again and again.
It's right in the Bhagavatam. There's nothing material that can start and nothing material that can check. Ahitukiya pratyata. You know the verse? Nothing material can cause bhakti. Nothing material can check bhakti. So what's independent is bhakti. Get on the bhakti cart or train or vehicle, and it will carry you beyond the circumstance. It's not that the circumstances are going to necessarily change. His health was what it was, and mosquitoes, and etc., thieves, and etc. All the the harassment of the weather and everything. And it took genius to do what the devotees were empowered by Prabhupada's desire to make this temple happen. Mission impossible. During that period, there's many things. I'll who do I send the link to this nice 1 hour? Oh, did I send it to you already? Okay. Remind, because there's two things. This is the second of two things. I can't remember the first one right now. I'll send that to you. You remind me what the first one was, because I can't remember. But, yes, we're responsible for choices we make, but it's not scripted. We're still making choices as we move forward. And Krishna's hand is always there. Always. Beg your pardon?
The first one was the reference of the washerman.
Yeah, that was right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So earlier you mentioned how Sita Devi was punished because when she asked Lord Ramachandra to catch the deer, and she asked Lakshman to go check on him, and she said a few things which led to an offense. If it was her shadow that was acting, then how would Sita Devi herself be punished?
Okay, this whole topic of Maya Sita and real Sita, it's not two things. It's not part of Valmiki Ramayana. I'll say it twice. It's not part of Valmiki Ramayana. It is part of other Ramayanas, but it's not part of Valmiki Ramayana. So it doesn't make it a 0, but it doesn't make it a 10 either. So it's easy to get confused. Really easy to get confused. But, exactly what is Maya Sita, at least for those versions of Ramayana that speak of a Maya Sita. When that so now we'll go to the Maya Sita after the first thing I just said. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to the Brahmana when he was in South India, who was going to fast till death because Sita had been kidnapped. You know the story? Do you know the story? A little bit? When Lord Chaitanya was traveling, one of the places he stopped was a Brahmana, a young Brahmana, invited him to come to his home for a meal, for lunch. When Lord Chaitanya came to take part in lunch, the Brahmana was sitting there in meditation. And Lord Chaitanya said, my dear Brahmana, what's your intention? He said, I'm waiting for Lakshman to come back from the forest with the items to be cooked for Ramachandra. He hasn't come back yet. So Lord Chaitanya could understand, he's on another platform. This man is on spontaneous bhakti platform, but it's just in his meditation, Lakshman's going to bring these vegetables from the forest. So after some time, the cooking happened. After the meal, Lord Chaitanya said to the Brahmana, "My dear Brahmana, now you please take your meal." He said, "No, I'm going to fast till death." Why? Because Sita's been kidnapped. And if Sita's been kidnapped, how can I eat and maintain my life? Lord Chaitanya said, "My dear Brahman, Sita wasn't kidnapped, it was a Maya Sita. So please trust it. Trust my word. Sita was not kidnapped." So the Brahmin accepted his word and he ate his meal. Then there's many other things that happened. Lord Chaitanya was deep in South India. He came to a temple. They had a copy of Kurma Purana. In Kurma Purana, it speaks of Maya Sita. So he was so happy. He had a copy of that section of Kurma Purana made and went all the way back, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles by foot, to the Brahmana's home to show him, "See, here's the Shastra Praman to verify it was Maya Sita." So now what's Maya Sita? Because there's some Pramana that speaks of it, and there's some Pramana that doesn't speak about it. So that Maya Sita, that it starts to get a little fuzzy, because there's not a lot, to my knowledge, there's not a lot of commentary. That's why fuzzy. So, do you know who was Vedavati?
No.
This young boy. Do you know who is Vedavati? Vedavati. One of the ladies that Ravana tried to molest. Ravana, big macho guy, flying over the Himalayas in his Pushpaka Vimana that he stole from his stepbrother Kuvera. And he saw down below in the forest there was a lady engaged in meditation and austerities. So his Pushpaka Vimana came in for a landing, and he approached her and said, my dear lovely lady, who are you and what are you doing in the forest? And she very quickly described, "I'm the son of such and such rishi. Such and such rishi was killed in his sleep by an envious person who wanted to marry me. My father said, no one can marry her, my daughter, except Vishnu. He didn't like it, so he killed my father in his sleep. And my mother, when my father died, carried my father's body into the funeral pyre, and she went to wherever he went. So I've been alone. I've come to the forest, completely fixed in meditation upon Lord Narayana. And she said, because of my meditation and austerities, I know exactly who you are. I know exactly what your intention is. Please leave here at once. I'll have nothing to do with you." That was her words, something to that effect. So he didn't, he's not one to take no for an answer. So some other words were spoken. He grabbed her hair to try to molest her. One of her hands turned into a sword and chopped off her hair and said, "Because you've touched my hair, I'm going to give up my body right now. Just by intense meditation, I'm going to give up my body. But in my next life, I'll come and be the cause of your death." That's Vedavati. So there's not a lot of commentary on this, but there's a common understanding, at least, that the Maya Sita was Vedavati. Now, in Valmiki Ramayana, specifically, she, Vedavati, took her birth as the son of Janak, or daughter of Janak. So that means a one-to-one correlation between Sita and Vedavati. Now there's some understanding. This is little, there's not commentary with the following of what I'm saying, but it's something like this. There is Sita, that's Bhudevi of the spiritual world, and there's a jiva known as Vedavati who was carrying the potency of the eternal Sita, and the two, Vedavati and Sita Devi, Bhu-Shakti, were as one entity. It was Maya Sita that was stolen, and the real Sita was taken by Agni and then returned when she entered into the fire in Lanka. There's not a lot of commentary on this. So it's a topic that gets asked, and there's not a lot of clarity in the answer because there's not a lot of clarity of commentary written by our acharyas. But that's an explanation that makes sense to me. Although if I'm asked what's the Shastra Praman for that, Maharaj, there's just little pieces of things. It's not in a nice package with a ribbon and bow on the top.
And I have one more question.
Okay.
So, I remember in one of the older shows of Ramayana, when
Speak slower.
one of the older shows of Ramayana, it shows that when Sita
This is
Devi,
a movie.
yeah, it's like in one of the older
Oh.
shows. So I'm not sure.
I don't,
if this
excuse
is
me for
correct.
just making that sound, but movies don't portray things. It's for effect for the audience. It's not for accuracy of Shastra.
Right. So that's why I want to ask, just to
Okay,
see
go
if
ahead. I'm
this is
sorry for
correct.
interrupting.
So in the older one, it shows that when Sita Devi is taken by Ravana, she's more in like a begging state, like begging him not to take her. And in one of the newer ones, it shows her as more defiant. But which one is the right one?
Sita Devi is the important thing is her heart, not just her words and her mood. And her heart is completely with Ram. And like Vedavati, she transformed her hand into a sword. So Sita Devi has powers that ordinary people don't have, ordinary humans don't have. So defiant makes sense to me. Get your grubby hands off me. I belong to Ram.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, there are different versions, and then how do you deal with the fact that they're different? Your question is which is the right version. First of all, I don't trust movies, and second of all, even within scriptures, that there's so many different versions of Ramayana, and the versions of Ramayana that are well accepted, not just so many Ramayanas, but well accepted from scriptural authority persons. There can be different realizations of the same experience, different perspectives on the very same object. One may see it this way, one may see it that way, and give emphasis this way or give emphasis that way. And it's just fine. It's not if this one's right, then that one's wrong. And if that one's right, then this one's wrong. It doesn't have to be like that. There can be. In class the other morning, by the way, I found the other scriptural reference. You know what is Brahma Samhita? Yes. So there's one of the lines, text 61 of Sri Brahma Samhita, that goes like this. Yadrashi yadrashi shraddha siddhi bhavati tadrashi. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but yadrashi tadrashi, as this, so that. Yadrashi tadrashi. Yadrashi yadrashi shraddha, you know the meaning of shraddha, faith. According to one's shraddha, faith, siddhi bhavati. Bhakti Siddhanta's translation of that is realization arises. Bhavati, it arises, like voila in Sanskrit, presto in magic. Something happens. Siddhi bhavati tadrashi. So according to one's shraddha, there'll be realizations. And it's just fine, because one's faith is a little like this, another faith is squeaky clean, is a little like that. So there's going to be different realizations about the same thing. And it's perfectly okay. The main thing for you and me to consider when not just watching movies, but what scriptures say. And different greatly elevated souls are it's quite okay that their realizations differ from one another. We discussed this in the morning class 2 mornings ago at the temple. There's another verse which I had to ask Kari Parshad to remind me what that verse is. And the Sanskrit is quite similar. Yadrashi something. So the verse is, there are 5 things that are realized according to one's faith. One of them is the form of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, the abode of the Lord, etc. The deity form. They're different realizations. And the Lord manifests according to one's faith. This young man, could you lean this way? Could you keep, I want eye contact, and it's just, okay, thanks. Don't let me bother you, just personalism, want to be able to see the person. Is that, so I forwarded that to Premadatri already. This other reference, that both of the references, the Sanskrit and the translation. So there's authority behind, it's okay that different realizations about the same thing according to one's faith.
Then how do we know which one's correct?
How what?
How do we know like which person to believe and which one's right?
There's rules, and the rules have to do with Shastra Praman, not just Shastra Praman, Apurusheya Shastra Praman, or Shabda Praman. What does that mean? Shabda, you know what that means, sound. Apurusheya means sound that comes from an infallible source. Purusha, that's Apurusheya, infallible. That sound that comes from an infallible source, that's the light. Then here comes Shastra, and you're a pure devotee, and over there is Rupa Goswami, and over there is Sanatana Goswami, and over there is Jiva Goswami, and they're pure devotees. They're reading Shastra, and they and you may get a different reading because you're all pure devotees. But the root is Shastra, Aparusheya Shabda Praman. And then comes, there must be different rules for understanding Shastra. Vyakarana. It must conform with the rules of Vyakarana, or Sanskrit grammar. And then this meaning, that meaning, according to one's faith, can be derived, providing it follows the rules of how to understand Sanskrit. Now, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, so I just rely on what our acharyas say. And I invest faith in these acharyas I just named. Rupa, Sanatan, Jiva Goswami. I don't have to know Vyakarana, Sanskrit grammar. I know what the scripture says, then I know what their rendering of the scripture is, and that in between step is where you can get it right or get it wrong. They know, and they have the receiver is on, so the signal is sent from the source of that Apurusheya Shabda Praman, and they got it. So when you read their writings, you're safe. That's how you can know. And if not, you can put it in a parking lot somewhere. That means maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And there's some things that I do know. Stay in the middle of the road. Watch out for the ditch. Movies is one of those ditches. I mean, they're largely, movie makers are interested in selling their movie, and having the audience say, wow, that was a good movie. What's the next one? Rather than the audience says, wow, that was a very transparent reproduction of Purusheya Shabda Praman. That's not their interest. So there, I don't put so much value in movies. It makes it easier, but who's the producer of the movie? What's his credential? He wants to get a following that has a popular movie. That's his credential. That's material. So be careful. I'm not saying don't watch movies, but just be very careful. So your question was, how do I know what's safe? These essential acharyas, and then others can have the realization too. They don't have to be just in that select few. But there's principles to be adhered to. And those that do, fine. Okay. Something online? You have something. Then there's something back there, and then we're going to end. Oops, something way back there. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So you talked about how shoka or sorrow experienced by Sita and Rama were in actuality transcendental pleasure or rasa.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I'm right in interpreting this way, but I'm thinking like even when we are doing sadhana bhakti, it feels very challenging in the sense that there are internal challenges, external challenges,
Yeah.
and we are in kind of the sorrowful situation
Welcome
because
to
we're
the
not,
club.
because we're not doing it correctly. We always feel that way.
Yeah.
But can the hope also be that if we survive on this path, if we sustain,
Don't be so dark. If we survive on this path.
yes,
But go ahead.
if we survive on that path, can we be hopeful that there will
Yes.
be transcendental pleasure?
Hope against hope. Asha Bandha. Nectar devotion. Asha Bandha. You know the phrase. Okay. So, just follow the perfected souls. Even my following is less than perfect. Let me continue. It's just like Prabhupada's example from Nectar Devotion. Walking propensity is there in a child. How many times does a little baby have to stand up and tumble and then get up again and cry and get up again? And the parents hold their little hand because walking propensity is already there. Just practice it. That which is bhakti is intrinsic to the soul. Just practice it as best you can, however imperfectly, however shortcomings and this and that and the other thing. You do it anyways. Following in the path of the great souls. There's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu gives a very cogent, simple definition of bhakti. Namapriya, can you remind me two things? To send the document about ecstasy is there in Shoka, and the document that the definition of Rupa Goswami's definition of sadhana, right from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So the answer is yes. By careful following. Having, back to her question, who do I follow? Perfected souls. Well, how do I know who's a perfected soul? Apurusheya Shabda Pramana, people that live their life accordingly, unflinchingly. There's a question back here, and then there's one over here, and then we're going to end. Whoops. Okay, I see way in the back. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
I just remind you, we've been here for 2 hours. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's more of a comment, Maharaj, on Jia's question. Like she was asking what is right, and you said it's about realization. So it reminded me of one verse from Tulsi Ramayana. It goes like this: Jaki rahi bhavna jaisi, Prabhu Murat in dekhi taisi. So when Lord Ramchandra got up to in the Swayamvar to pick up the bow of Lord Shiva, some people saw him as a handsome young man. Some people saw him with a Vatsalya Bhav kid. Some people saw Das Bhav. So all different people, same person people saw with different. So Lord's pastime can be perceived in different way by different people according to their bhavna. That's what it says.
And is this one right or is that one right? And if that one's right, then this one can't be right. And if this one's right, then that one can't be right. And it just, very same, not just similar, but same is when Krishna walked into the wrestling arena.
Yeah.
Same.
Same thing.
Back there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful lecture. So I have a question about, you mentioned Sri Shakti. Sri Shakti is a Sri Shakti, Bhu Shakti and Neela Shakti.
Neela.
Neela, right.
N-I-L-A. Neela.
Yeah, right. First one was Lakshmi Priya is a Sri and Sri Shakti, and the
Vishnu Priya
Vishnu
was Sri.
Priya, yes. And then the last one was the Neela is a Navadvip Dham. So Sri Gadadhar Goswami is which Shakti?
He's not one of those three.
Not one of them?
No, he's not one of those three.
Okay, so which Shakti?
Vladini.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Now, let me just pause for a moment. He's the spiritual potency, but there are different ways of identifying the spiritual potency, different nomenclatures corresponding to different aspects of the internal potency. The Hladini is very, very specific. That's Radharani. So it's not necessarily, I'm rethinking. I want to withdraw the statement that I made very quickly. So Swarup Shakti, there could be different names. So what I'm going to do is between now and when I leave Phoenix, I'll see if I can find the answer to your question. Which specific aspect of Krishna's spiritual potency is Gadadhar, corresponding to which particular Shakti? Because I'm not sure Hladini Shakti is the right answer. Okay, there's a question over here. Okay.
So the question is, would Ram still go to exile if there is no qualified successor?
No qualified what?
Successor. So I think the
Do you
question...
understand the question?
Yeah.
I don't.
Let me read it fully. Since it seems that his loyalty is towards his people than family, as he sent Sita to forest.
No, when he went into exile, it was his father, and it's a dharma of the son to follow the father's instruction to him, and he's ready to sacrifice anything, everything, because his father said, "That's it." That's what he said to Bharat. Our father said, "That's it. So you become the king. Not only I don't, but you become the king." He said, so do it. So it's not the same, but it's something very similar to Arjuna going on pilgrimage for 1 year because he violated something that Kunti said. That's mother. Kunti said, for 1 month, private sea for each of the 5 brothers with Draupadi, and follow that principle. By emergency circumstance, he entered. So I have to purify him. So it's just a dharmic principle. A dharmic principle is obedience to the superior, the guru, the teacher, mother and father. Just a dharmic principle. Now, dharma kind of gets washed away in Kali Yuga, but that's the principle that he was following. Maryada Purushottama. Okay. So we're going to end. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Maharaj ki.